Hmm. Okay, thank you all for joining me, Full Throttle Thursday. Glad to have you all with me. We got at least one person who is new that is joining us, and that is Jeff, right? Jeff Chapman? Is that right, Jeff? From the land down under in Tasmania. I was thinking about this US aid scandal. What if we just spent taxpayer money, I don't know, maybe locking every single person from US aid into a round soundproof room with about 50 Tasmanian devils that haven't eaten in 3 weeks that are high on angel dust? Yeah, I think that would be good taxpayer money to spend, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, mate. Especially the cranky ones,
The
because
cranky ones. Aren't they
yeah,
all
the
cranky
cranky ones.
though?
Some of them are okay, but there is a they're getting pretty well endangered now because they're getting facial cancers.
Oh,
They're
geez.
trying, yeah, and it's having a really bad effect on them.
Oh boy,
But
that's not good.
no, it's not good.
They're not a
So
protected species in Tasmania and Australia and all that?
Yes, they are,
They
but
are, okay.
because they're such a generally they're such a horrible, nasty, vicious, love to fight and bite each other. That's where their facial cancers are being contracted and transmitted.
Gotcha.
So yeah, so
Okay.
it's a real problem. But gee, they're working hard on it, mate.
Gotcha.
Um,
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to always have more and more of the regular commenters and things like that join us. So I definitely appreciate it. So I'll actually start with you being new and all that. So you've been, I would assume, seeing all the news, right? Usually get it maybe not as quick as we do, but at least the next day. What are your thoughts on the U.S. aid scandal coming from someone that lives in Tasmania?
okay, my thoughts are that I'm not surprised, but I am absolutely disgusted. But I knew the funding had to be coming from somewhere. Um, what gets me is I did hear a report. I can't recall who it was from, but it was an earlier report, and they said that interestingly, a lot of the Democrats were getting kickbacks from all these fundings, but so are the Republicans,
Yeah, there's a
and
lot of there's a
and
lot of
the and
Republicans
the
too.
split is about 50-50. So there's a lot of dirty Republicans in there too. And I don't care who they are, and I don't think you do either. If they're into that and they're that corrupt, well, they need to go.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt about it. So we're gonna go through and just talk to each one of you. So Gail, it looks like you were next coming in. What do you think is the most shocking thing that you've heard coming out of this USAID scandal so far? Gail,
She's muted.
Gail, you're muted. Gotta unmute yourself. All right, we'll come back to you. Walter, what do you think is the most I don't know, I guess not really the word is egregious, but shocking thing that we learned from the US8 scandal so far? All right, we're doing good tonight.
I don't Walter on there.
Gail, are you back on yet or no?
I
There
guess
you
I
are.
didn't
Okay.
realize I was
No
muted.
problem. That's why we do it live. So, what
Yeah,
do you think is the craziest thing that you've heard coming out of this
$300 million
scandal?
to Afghanistan after they stole everything we own. I mean, as far as it's from the army. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
they're still giving them money. That's horrible. I
Yeah,
would that really got to me. I mean, you
that
would
is
think we'd
definitely
be done with
shocking.
them.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Walter? Do you got your mute off yet?
I don't see
I
Walter
don't say
on
maybe
there.
maybe he didn't join us anymore. So, Carol, what about you? What do you think is the most shocking thing you've heard so far coming out of USAID?
Okay, I think it was a bunch of money to the divert DEI training for like the country of Georgia or something.
Yeah,
So it was tons and tons of money for DEI trainings all over the world. That's just ridiculous. The whole list, most everything was more absurd than the next. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, it certainly is. What about you, Glenn? You're up next here. What's the most shocking thing that you've heard so far?
There's quite a few of them actually. The condoms to Gaza. Was it like a few
Yeah.
$1 million for condoms? And then there was something about Sesame Street in some
In
country.
Iraq?
Or so, yeah, and I mean there the list there was it was on Babylon B, and it was a quiz. You know, which one is real and which one did we make up? You
Oh,
know,
that's
and
funny.
all
Sad,
of
but
them were
funny.
real except the very last one. I don't remember what it was, but it was, it was just, I was just like, are you kidding me? It was just like one thing right after another. And then, of course, reading how it was, all laundered money.
Yeah.
So,
Gotcha.
and
All right. So, let's see. Liam, what do you think is the most shocking thing that you have discovered from the U.S. aid scandal?
That is a great question. I mean, one thing that really shocked me is how easy it was to uncover. I mean, well, you have Doge going in there, just a brand new agency, and all of a sudden, all this information comes out. It's like, as you've said many times, they ain't hiding this anymore. So, uncovered it, and look what we found.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. All right, Carl, you're next. Hopefully, you're not muted. But what is the craziest thing that you've heard from the U.S. aid scandal?
Well, I don't know if I'm not sure, but it wouldn't surprise me. The Politico thing, and then all this stuff they're finding. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more stuff they find
Oh, there's going to
we
be
didn't know
a
about.
ton more stuff. There's no question about that. Jeff and Pam, what about you? Or Jeff, at this point,
Yeah,
or I'm
Jeff
sorry,
had to
Pam, at this
step,
point, what do you think?
yeah, Jeff had to step out, but
That's okay.
he was shocked about the condoms. So I'm going to ask to verify what that story was. But mine is the millions of dollars to the New York Times. I heard they got New York Times got millions. Or was it the New York Post? One of them.
That's actually not as shocking as Politico. $26 million.
Oh my
Imagine
God.
that. The fake regime in Washington that knew that they were fake, that knew that they had a fake president with dementia, actually spent $26 million of our taxpayer money to Politico for Politico to then turn around and do nothing but glorious positive coverage. That is what you call Pravda. That is what you call state-run media. That is what you call North Korea type of shit. Okay? And these people don't need to just be fired. They need to be prosecuted. And as much as we are inundating them with so much stuff so fast, they're inundating us and Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice because they're probably going, oh my God, who do we prosecute first? Right? That's literally what they have got to be thinking. And we're going to find so many more of these crimes as we keep going through these different things. Julie, thank you for joining us. Glad to hear that you are feeling much better. What do you think is the most shocking thing so far from the USAID scandal?
First and foremost, let me say thank you for having me back. I've been
course.
so sick.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Sinus infection went horribly wrong. Anyway, Doge is the gift that keeps on giving, especially when it
Yes.
comes to coloring books for people overseas. I think that is absolutely an atrocity, right along with condoms and billions to people that don't need it. So pick one because they all suck ass, and we all know that. So
Yeah.
it's all a great big giant bunch of bullshit.
Exactly. So before I get to you, Little Mystery, I want to go back to Pam. You asked about the condom scandal. And from what I can gather, they use the condoms not for the intended purpose,
No.
but rather to make bombs, believe it or not. They actually make condom bombs to blow up Israelis and kill Jews. So that's really the crutch of what they were doing. And to think that our government was dumb enough to keep funding that goes to show you they're either incompetent, stupid, evil, or on the side of our enemies, which of course I believe that they were. So that was that on that. So little mystery. What do you think the craziest, wackiest thing that we have heard, shocking thing from the US aid scandal so far?
One of them is the $84 million to butt ugly Chelsea Clinton. Ew.
Oh, you mean Wade Hubbell's daughter?
I mean, the bitch is so ugly that if she was
Oh
to
my.
get it would still be considered penal.
Yeah. 84 million. Okay, so here's what happened. You've got the grifters at the top, right? You've got Bill and Hillary. Then they have, well, they don't really have this daughter because Wade Hubbell is the father of Chelsea. If you could take a look at the two of them next to each other, it's like, you know, one ugly person next to the other. But here's the thing, $84 million. I guarantee you there was a family dinner conversation that said, look, if you need that money, just go ahead and do it. Don't worry about it. They'll never find out. You know why? Because Joe Biden and the rest of them are going to shoot and kill President Trump, and therefore none of this stuff will ever come out. So go ahead and grift. Do what we do at the Clinton Foundation. Go ahead. We're not going to be held accountable either. Thank God President Trump is alive, and thank God he did not get killed, because now, oh boy, it's just starting, folks. Let me tell you, it is just starting. This is going to make Watergate look like a parking ticket, okay? It's going to make it look like a parking ticket. Walter, you were up with us, and then you left, and you came back. So, Walter, what are your thoughts here? What is the craziest, most outrageous thing that you have heard so far coming out of this U.S. aid scandal?
Very strange. Well, I'm going to go a little more broad and say that it's the fact that nobody has discussed it, nobody has unearthed it, whether they knew about it or not. It's just so amazing that this level of corruption can exist and nobody's talking about it. Nobody. That's what gets me the most.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, I made this point the other night. I think I did it on last night. I can't remember. I think I did. But the bottom line is it's garbage in, garbage out with every single president for the last 50, 60 years, right? No one would ever come in and rock the boat to the point that President Trump has. He doesn't care. He's just like, I'm coming in, I'm going to wreck Washington, and I'm going to dismantle it, and I'm going to give it back to the way that it was supposed to be intended to be, the way our framers and our founding fathers put forward a great nation. And it hasn't been that for so many generations, so many decades, over and over and over. Garbage in, garbage out. Protect the swamp at all costs. It doesn't matter whether you're an R or D, and move on to the next one and keep grifting and stealing from the American taxpayers. Thank God it is finally exposed, and I do hope that it is going to end as well. So I don't know if you heard, but this judge, this absolute dirtbag of a judge, ended up trying to block, and actually temporarily blocked until Monday, the financial buyout, right? You heard about the financial buyout? So first it was 20,000 federal workers, then it doubled to 40, and today, by the deadline, it was supposed to be 60,000 federal employees, and some dipshit Bill Clinton judge decided to jump in and stop it. So here is what I wrote on X. So hopefully it doesn't get me in too much trouble, but you know what? Hey, you know, I'm not going to change who I was and who I am. So here's what I wrote. I wrote, pay attention and fight back right now. When I wasn't censored and had my Amazon Prime show, my Roku TV show, and the millions who followed me on social media platforms, I would often do shows or put out statements and posts like I'm doing right now. This federal judge thinks he's going to stop the buyout of now 60,000 federal workers. Think again. And then I put the article to it. And then I put contact Judge George A. O'Toole Jr., and then in parentheses, he's a tool, all right, at 617-748-9159. This is his assistant, John Fleming. Call and tell him to immediately rescind this bullshit order blocking these federal buyouts. You can also email him at John Fleming, and then the email address. Let him know that if he does not immediately do so, we will organize a very loud protest in front of his office outside of the courthouse. If you live near it, please organize. And I gave the address. I said, we will follow all laws and guidelines, but we will be loud and actively engaged. And then I said this, for the record, this leftist judge was appointed by Bill Clinton, who in 1995 eliminated 102 federal employees. Not too many people know this, and offered 70,000, even higher than the 60,000 from Trump, 70,000 workers, the same type of a buyout that President Trump has offered. And of course, at the time, the prostitutes in the media were glowingly praising him. It was a bold thing for the American taxpayer and all this other bullshit. Meanwhile, he does the same thing, and a judge steps in. So then it says from the article below, and I put the article in there, this is from Bill Clinton in 1994, to reduce the workforce by 102,000 positions by the end of fiscal year 1994, we offered a 70,000 member buyout. Several non-DOD agencies have offered to defer buyouts that will take place between now and March of 1997. Defense will be using buyouts as it continues to downsize through 1999. Counting those, we expect to buy out another 84,000 workers through 1997 as we reduce the workforce by a total of 272,900 people. The prostitutes in the media at the time praised him, calling him bold thinking. Let this be a warning to any and all judges who think they're going to stop transparency. We will find you, we will point you out, we will expose you. You will not legislate from the bench any longer. It is because of bold actions like this why I have been censored, targeted, threatened, death threats, etc. I eat them for breakfast. When you are a threat and over the target, they come after you. Well, come and get me. I will not stop, I will not comply, I will not shut up, I will not do anything other than what I have done for the last 12 years. Use my brains, my guts, my balls, and my voice to defeat you, embarrass you, and expose you. And I don't care if you're a judge, a military officer, a head of state, CIA operative, FBI agent, a cop, a Democrat politician, a rhino Republican, etc. I fear no man. And then I put the contact information, and I said, please call and email and protest. If you follow me on X, it is because supposedly you need 2 wheelbarrows for each one of your balls like I do. If you're too afraid, sit back and watch as left-wing lawfare upends Trump's efforts to drain the swamp. Your choice, Beernstein out. That's what needs to be done. We need to step up and tell these judges that you're not going to interfere, okay? And here's the other thing, and I'll say this publicly, and I don't give a shit who hears it. What did Biden do? He defied the Supreme Court on college loans, right? And freebies and everything else. He defied the courts on the mandates. He defied them anywhere he wanted to. So you know what? President Trump, he ought to do the same thing. Tell this judge where he can go shove it and say, you know what? I'm firing these people anyway. I'm giving them the bailouts. And if you don't like it, well, then you can litigate against me from outside of Washington, D.C. How's that? And eventually it might go to the Supreme Court. So anyway, let's go through and let's wrap it around the other direction here. So we'll start with you, Walter. Am I crazy? Number one, probably. But number two, do you think that President Trump is going to get his official federal buyout in the end?
I don't think you're crazy. I think you're aggravated, like all good Americans are. But I do think Trump's going to get his buyout because it falls solely within the executive branch to manage those departments the way that he wants. Exactly. And as long as he's not breaking any laws, then he can run it like his own business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I agree with that. I think he's going to get it.
I think he will too, because there's precedent from another president, and again, a Democrat president, and the judge that blocked it was appointed by that Democrat who actually did even more than what Trump is even offering. So I do agree with you. Julie, what are your thoughts here? Do you think that Trump's going to get this full buyout of these federal workers?
He's not stopping at anything. He has started way before the election, and he's not backing down. I'm sure he'll get his way eventually, and I hope he does. It doesn't matter what these media jackasses think. or how they feel about it. What they don't know is how hard Trump can push. And because Trump's name is at the back of that goddamn freaking paper, that's all there is. It's going to work and it's going to happen.
It has to happen. This
And
is
you're
our
not
last
nuts.
shot.
And you're
No
not
other
nuts.
president in history would have
No.
this type of attitude to dismantle Washington. Every single person, DeSantis, didn't matter who it is, would
That's
never
right.
even come
No.
close to doing this.
No. No, they're all chicken shits. That's why. And I think Trump has given his last giant push to all of it. He wants his dream to come true. And you know what? He's making all of us very, very happy because he is. And you're not crazy. You're right on the mark and you're right on the target. You always have been.
Gotcha. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Pam, what about you? Do you think he's going to get his federal worker bailouts and all that, get past all this?
I hope so. And I can tell you in California now, we know Newsom is spending 50 million here to counteract Trump, his policies here. A lot of it is going to go for people who are going to be deported and maybe hire lawyers to pay their lawyers' fees. But I can happily report Children's Hospital of Los Angeles will no longer give surgical sex changes or the chemical castration drugs to anyone under the age of 19.
Okay,
So-
well that
so the-
is really good. Now,
Yeah.
being that you brought up California, I think there's a couple of things. Number one, President Trump should hold what they just did over him and use the leverage of the federal government and say, look, you need to rescind that law that, you know, the California Assembly just passed with the 50 million, 25 million for their own lawyers. In other words, California taxpayers like you're paying for these California scumbags to sue the federal government. That's right, you in California, you're paying for that. $25 million set aside so that they don't even have to spend money on their own lawyers. They're going to use taxpayer money to do it. The other 25 million, you are correct, is supposed to go to others for illegal aliens to hire more lawyers to fight Trump to stay in the country. This is like batshit crazy bonkers right now, okay? So what Trump ought to do is say, okay, California, I tell you what, you want to do this? Tariffs work both ways. You don't just have to do tariffs on Mexico and Canada and China and elsewhere. No, do 100% tariffs on the state of California immediately and say, you want to play this game? 100%. We're cutting you off as if you don't even exist until you rescind that ridiculous bill and take that 50 million and instead put it towards fire prevention. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I'm glad you brought up California. There's not going to be smart cities. There's not going to be sardine cans going up to the sky in these new homes. No, not going to happen. You know why? Because the executive order that President Trump signed has the Department of the Interior, the Secretary of the Interior, in this case, former North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, is in charge of that. He's also in charge of the money coming from the federal government, as well as Rick Grinnell being the point person on how the funds get allocated. So all this bullshit about Karen Basshole and Gruesome Newsom going around saying that they're going to rebuild and reimagine Los Angeles, not going to happen. Number one, the insurance companies have no money, and the ones that are still in business are pretty much insolvent. Number two, the amount of insurance companies that have already left are like astronomical because they were not allowed to raise their premiums due to these morons in California passing some type of law, I forget what it's called, to make sure that they couldn't raise their premiums. So they said, you California, we're out and we're going to leave. So these houses are not going to get rebuilt. Most of them are not going to get rebuilt. You know, these are 14, 15, 16 million dollar homes in Pacific Palisades. They're not going to get rebuilt. They're going to be 2 million, 3 million, 4 million if they're lucky. But you know who really gets affected? It's the people in Pasadena. It's the Eaton Fire people. It's the people that work for these scumbags, right? They're chiefs of staffs, they're publicists, they're management companies. You know, those are the ones that are on the lower end of the upper echelon of California, if you will. So the bottom line here is they can't spend the money like they think. because there is attachments to it from the federal government, which is why Basshole said that she was going to go outside to look for funding. But I don't think it's going to work because no one's got the money. That's the thing. They made this economy so horrible and so shitty for so long, there's no money. So keep that in mind, because that's a really, really good point there. Carl, what about you? Number one, am I crazy? Probably. And number two, do you think we're going to get these federal workers out and actually drain the swamp?
Well, I'll say you're not crazy. And also, if they have trouble getting that done, if those worker or getting those 60,000 or however, Trump will have something up his sleeve. And one other thing, did you say about that asshole representative? I think is Texas, Al Green. Guess what he wants to do?
Yeah. Oh boy.
Wait for it. Impeach.
Yeah. Isn't he the same douchebag that said that you can't put like too many military people in Guam because the island will tip over? I might be wrong on that. But am I right on that? I don't know.
Robinson said that, I think it was.
Somebody said it. I don't remember who said it, but you're right, guys. Somebody did say that, and it's probably him. But this Al Green character, first of all, his impeachment doesn't make any sense. Dastardly deeds. What are you talking about, dastardly deeds? That's nothing that you can impeach anybody on, number one. And number two, it's not going anywhere. I forget somebody, I think it was it Gail or Iris, one of you two said something about that, and I was like, don't even worry about it. That's just not going to happen. Okay, so Liam, what are your thoughts here? Do you think he's going to get these federal workers out and finally drain the swamp?
I'm going to say he'll find a way. I mean, if the courts continue to cause problems, you can always have the House just not fund these bureaucratic organizations, and then they run out of money, and then what do? Fire all their workers or stop wasting the money on useless stuff. So, I mean, he'll find a way.
Yeah, I agree. I think they will too. But the thing is with the House is that, I mean, we have what is it, 3 seats, 2? I don't even know what it is. I think it's like 3 or 4 seats. It's not much. And then you have special elections coming up. We got to make sure we win that. I mean, it's just a disaster. You would think that President Trump, it would have been so much better if we had the Senate in a bigger, robust number, like we should have had 57. They stole 4 seats. And the House should have been at least 10, 15, 20 seats. I can't imagine that, all of those people that quote unquote are in those seats are legitimate. The majority of them are not, especially the 5 or 6 in California, which is why I've been screaming for the longest time that we need an executive order for the Department of Election Integrity. Let's go to work. Let's start figuring out. Put these little science nerds in the voter rolls. Okay, let's go there. That's what I want to see. So we'll see what happens. So who was next up there? Glenn. What are your thoughts, Glenn? Are we going to get this draining of the swamp finally once and for all done?
I believe 100% it'll get done, because now we're at 60,000 that are expecting this buyout. I think before the next 3 hours, they have to get it, sign up for it. It was at midnight tonight.
I believe it was. Yeah, I think it was this morning or something. It was
at Eastern time. So we'll probably be 80 to 100,000 that are expecting the big payout. And they're going to tell now 99% of them are going to be, Democrat, far lefties, or whatever. So they're going to be up this judge's ass going, no, wait a minute. I don't want to go back to work,
Exactly. And that's why, and I'm going to put this show out there, but people need to contact this George A. O'Toole, and the phone number 617-748-9159. And the email is john_Fleming@mad.uscourts.gov. So John Fleming, Fleming, at mad.uscourts.gov. And again, it's George A. O'Toole, 617-748-9159. I'm going to make sure that a lot of people see this, and I'm going to make sure that we have a lot of people civically engaged to contact this judge and let him know that we are not going to sit back and allow this to continue. So we'll see.
then
Back in the day when I wasn't censored, I put out something like that with a phone number. Forget it. They were calling me. Take it down. Take it down. We're getting so many phone calls. That was years ago. And we're going to get back there at some point.
And then one other thing, Josh, that was Hank Johnson that said that
Oh, it's
Guam.
Hank Johnson.
Yeah, he's
Okay.
and
What's
he's
the difference? Hank Johnson, Al Green, right?
and he still comes up with some dandies. I'll tell you that. I think the dude's on acid or something like that.
Probably.
So he's tripping on some shit.
Probably. Carol, what about you? What are your thoughts here? Are we going to get these federal workers out?
I think he's gonna do everything he possibly can, and I think he'll die trying. So they
Mhm.
better watch out. He's a man on a mission.
He is a man on a mission. There's no question
Yep.
about that. Gail,
Absolutely.
what about you, Gail?
Yeah,
What do you
normally
think
I
here?
say, well, they're going to get in his way. No, but I think he's really determined this time, and I think he'll get what he needs to get out. I hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're at the point now where hope and all that is really not something that he's accepting, number one, but number two, we should be accepting, because I think that with everything that we have done, as I said before, this was a shock and awe campaign so far. He's had 4 years to think about this stuff. 4 years. And after what they have done to him, how they have treated him, how they have gone after him and his family and tried to indict him and tried to impeach him and tried to kill him, he's pissed. He's pissed, and he's had a long time. And he said to himself, if the American people just give me this opportunity, I promise you, I will absolutely upend and destroy Washington from the inside out, and we are going to make it, work and function better for the people, which is unbelievable, because just about everything that we're doing, everything is right here. It's unbelievable. And remember, this came out October 8th. This came out before all of this happened. So it's such a it's like a validation, you know what I mean? That I sat there at my kitchen, counter and wrote this book in 5.5 weeks and watched all my old shows to go through to get ideas and everything else. And now I put it all together, and that's why I want to make sure that a lot of people read it, because everything we're talking about is right here. And it's been unreal. All right, Jeff, the man down under from Tasmania. What are your thoughts here? I know you don't live here, but you're keeping an eye on everything, just like Iris does in Sweden and so many others. You think we're going to get to the bottom of all this and drain this swamp?
Okay. Excuse me. Firstly, Josh, you're not crazy. Crazy like a fox, maybe. And
Crazy brave.
yeah, crazy like a fox, mate. I think a lot of it will happen, but the legal court cases that the bad actors are going to try and use, and the dirty tricks and stuff, they haven't finished. They're working on it. They know what they have plans. So I think it's going to involve a lot of legal processes and court cases. But hopefully if he gets 98% of it done, it'll be fantastic for the whole world. And excuse me, as far as Australia goes, with Trump doing all of these tariffs and import tariffs and stuff, excuse me, it'll be great. It's going to cause short-term pain to Australia, but it will be a long time. It'll be a gain in the end. Trump also needs to really have a good look at the Five Eyes and the bits that Australia government have had their hand in regards, especially to the Russia. A lot of that was one of our former politicians, Alexander
What was it?
Downer.
Turnbull? Is that his name?
Yeah,
Malcolm
Turnbull was
Turnbull?
involved. Turnbull's very much into banks and bankers' mates, and see, bringing in overseas banks into Australia has absolutely decimated our banking system, and that was the deal for his banker mates. Alexander Downer, he actually got caught pretending to be James Bond 007 in a big spy thing in regards to in Asia. He was setting up spy cameras and recording everything and pretending to be a spy, and they kicked him out. And then I think he went to be the Australian representative in America for a while, and they kicked him out. And then they gave him a post in the UK to get him out of the limelight. And while he was there, that's when he helped to start the Russia debacle. Yeah, he's a real piece of shit, mate. Really is.
Let me ask you this. What do the people in Australia think about Doge and what President Trump is doing right now, and especially with all the executive actions and orders that we've seen in the first, 2 weeks or so?
The people that I circulate with common interest and so on, they're all very happy, walking around feeling much lighter and more confident.
What
in
about
our
the
future.
prostitutes in your media? What are they thinking?
It depends on who you watch. Now, there are some very good reporters on Sky News Australia.
Yeah.
Some of them are very good.
Rita Panahi, she's great.
Yeah,
Lefty's
Rita's
losing it.
Mate, she's fantastic.
Yeah, I would love to be on Sky News, by the way, on her show in particular. So if you can pull any strings, let me know.
Also, Josh, remember when you had a few interviews with the Australian radio group,
Yeah, the TNT group, yes.
Yeah, and they were forced into shutting down.
They were.
Yes, well, one of the good reporters on that, he now has another platform and I've found him on. And
which one was that? Which guy? Which person?
Oh, gee, I'll tell you what. How about if maybe through Messenger I can send you a link to one of these.
Yeah, I know Jason Alborn the most. Dean Macon, another good guy, and then Melinda, what was her last name? Was it Richards? I think it was.
It was mainly Jason, I believe.
Yeah, Jason. I like Jason. We talk a lot. He's great. He's awesome. He's a good guy. But they said that they were going to relaunch in a different title in March. So hopefully I'll go back to doing some more of that. What's interesting is that the producer that was working with the TNT TV shows then moved over to RAV, to Real America's Voice. Her name is Kimberly. She reached out to me, and so that's where my connection has been to being able to get on Real America's Voice. So yeah, it's been interesting. But TNT was the equivalent of like a One America News in America, but for Australia. So
yes.
Did I get everybody? I'm not sure if I did. I thought I did. Did I get Little Mystery? I think I did on everybody on that story.
Or I've got a problem.
You have a question?
Okay, I'm sorry. Goodbye. I gotta go.
You got to get going? Okay. All
I
right.
got an ear problem. Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Take care, Gail.
Okay. So let's see. What time is it? We got a little bit more time left. All right. So everything that is happening in Washington, the interesting thing is that they were told what they were going to do, right? Trump said, if you elect me, I'm going to go through the government with a fine-tooth comb. I'm going to go through everything. I'm going to have Doge, work through and go through every agency, and we're going to make cuts. They even said they're going to do $2 trillion in cuts by, July 4th of 2026. And then they were going to go out of business, right? They were going to phase out the whole entire thing. So why are they shocked? Why are they shocked? They knew this was coming. You know why they're shocked? Because they didn't think he'd do it. That's why. And he keeps his promises, obviously. And that's where the shock is coming from. But also the fact that now they know that they've been outsmarted, right, by these 22-year-olds that know coding and they know, I don't know anything about computer aided design and, whatever it is. I don't know any of that stuff. I'm not a computer expert, obviously, but they know the things that they need to know. Forensics, they know how to get into all these different things, and they're sleeping in their offices. They are doing it for pretty much no pay. They're doing it because they're patriots, because they wanted to do this. And I think it's just awesome. I really, really do. And I hope that it's just beginning, because they're going to go into the Department of Education next. Oh boy. Could you imagine what they are spending money on in like all these other countries for education and indoctrination and DEI and trans this and trans that? I mean, it's just going to be out of control. And then, of course, they're going to go into the IRS. They're already tonight, starting to, I think today, they're in Medicare and Medicaid right now. I mean, this is like the greatest thing ever. It truly, truly is. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't think these judges in the end are going to be able to really do anything to stop this. I think they can slow it down a little bit, but I think in the end, even if it goes to the Supreme Court, I think President Trump is going to win. So now, if you remember, I've been saying that in order to go around the preemptive pardon, we need to get Fauci, right? I've been saying that now for a couple of weeks. The key to overturning the preemptive pardon is to go after Anthony Fauci, file a class action lawsuit, and get it up to the Supreme Court. Let the Supreme Court get involved right away to make a decision. Is it constitutional to be able to use a preemptive pardon for crimes that have never even possibly been indicted on yet? I don't think that should be legal. And so that is what needs to happen next. However, 17 state attorney generals have now gotten together and they are challenging Biden's preemptive pardon, and they vow to prosecute serial liar Anthony Fauci anyway. Now, let me back up. The great Tina Peters, who I had a chance to interview on her show about a month before those scumbags in Colorado put this wonderful, patriotic woman in prison, a Gold Star mother in her 70s, in prison for 9 years. President Trump sadly can't really do anything about it because it was done at the state level. But that also works both ways. And what's happening right now is these attorney generals in these different states, they are now trying to figure out if they can file charges against Fauci based on detriments, deaths, injuries, whatever it may be, in the respective states. 17 attorney generals have formally requested aid from Republican congressional leaders to dive even deeper into the origins of COVID-19 and explore possible legal actions against Dr. Anthony Fauci at the state level. This concerted effort, spearheaded by South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson, I don't know who that is right now, aims to circumvent the preemptive pardon issued by Joe Biden on his last day in office, which sought to shield Fauci from federal prosecution. The pardon covers any federal offenses Fauci may have committed between January 1st, 2014 and the date of the pardon. President Biden blanket pardons of Dr. Fauci is a shameful attempt to prevent accountability, said Attorney General Wilson. We are fully prepared to take appropriate action to ensure justice is served if our findings indicate violations of state law exist. So this is pretty cool, okay? And right now it looks like you've got Wilson in South Carolina, Jonathan Skrmetti in Tennessee, John Gard acting in Florida, Liz Morell, Louisiana, Paxton in Texas, Marshall in Alabama, Labrador in Idaho, Wrigley in North Dakota, Brown, Utah, Rokita in Indiana, Jackley in South Dakota, Griffin, Arkansas, Knudsen in Montana, Bailey in Missouri, who was the runner-up, by the way, to Kash Patel for the FBI director. Good guy, Andrew Bailey. Chris Kobach, awesome, awesome. Kobach has been around for a very long time. He's the Attorney General of Kansas, McCuskey, West Virginia, and Hilgers in Nebraska. So let's start with this one, and we'll go back around on this. So let's see here. We'll start with you, Julie. What do you think? Do you think that we are finally going to either A, get this up to the Supreme Court, or hold Fauci and some of these other people that have been pardoned at the state level? What do you think?
If it's a preemptive pardon, is it just for the federal level or can it go through state as well?
It's only the federal level. Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution somehow, believe it or not, allows. I asked Alan Dershowitz this, and we had a text back and forth, and he said it was legal. And he's, you know, the foremost expert in constitutional whatever.
Then cannot each state instead press charges?
Well, that's what they're looking at. That's why these 17 attorney generals are getting together, because they're now going to go and they're going to ask Congress, Republicans in Congress, to give them the information, evidence, whatever it may be, so that they can look at it and see if they can come up with a way to file a lawsuit, hopefully a criminal indictment lawsuit against Fauci based on the state level. And again, if he was indicted in any one of those states, he could face prosecution and go to prison regardless of the pardon at the federal level. So I think that's kind of the tactic. But here's the thing, even if they can't, let's just say these 17 attorney generals get together and say, you know what? Why don't we just bring it to the Supreme Court? Why don't we just represent a class action lawsuit of, I don't know, 150 to 200,000 people that have been injured from vaccines, from COVID, from lockdowns, from masks, from whatever it might be, get them all together and file an amicus brief directly to the Supreme Court, bypassing the lower courts and saying, hey, is preemptive pardoning legal or not? Make the call. And I think that in the end, they may want to do that. But I'm also optimistic that Congress is going to give them enough information where they may be able to indict him at the state level. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So I just wanted to kind of hear from everybody else.
If they've got that kind of evidence, and they've got, which they should anyway, and it can sit at state level, the more the merrier. Why wouldn't the Supreme Court take it on? I don't see why not. And I don't see why we wouldn't go that route.
I think what would happen is if they indicted him at a state level, he would immediately appeal his indictment to the next higher court, which would have been the circuit court, right? And then it would eventually go to the Court of Appeals. And depending on those decisions, the Supreme Court could get involved and finally decide preemptive pardoning once and for all. You know what I mean? And so I think that's their track, but I don't know. I'm not an attorney, nor do I play one on television. So we'll have to see what happens. Carl,
I think it could work. I think it could work just fine.
Yeah,
but they have to go that route.
Yep. Carl, what do you think? You're muted. Come on, buddy. There you go.
About the what? How about the what?
Attorney generals.
Oh yeah, that any way to get Fauci at the satanic garden gnome.
The satanic garden gnome, I used to call him all the time.
Yeah. Or flip flop falsy.
We also got to get who? What do we have to get? What's his name?
Oh yes,
Pencil What's his name?
Adam Schiff.
Pencil neck. Just for you, buddy. All right. Glenn, let's move on to Glenn. So, Glenn, do you think we're going to get Fauci and the rest of these idiots and overturn this preemptive pardoning garbage?
Well, you did mention our attorney general here in the great state of Indiana, Todd Ricotta, and he's a pit bull.
He's a pit bull. Good.
Oh, he does not give up, and he goes straight for the fucking throat.
Nice.
on everything. I thought
My
I
kind of AG.
texted you a few different things that guy was doing with the illegals and going after the uh, South Bend sheriff and
Uh-huh.
them out there about not, giving them up and all that other. He doesn't care. And then now they're taking him back and forth to court because they told him to do something. He said he would, and then he didn't do it. Now he's saying, hey, you know what? Screw you. I don't have to. But I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. And if the other attorney generals are anything like him, they're going to nail Fauci to the cross.
Good. That's what we want to hear, right?
That's what I'm hoping anyway.
Good. All right.
But I'll
Carol,
keep
what about
posting
you,
what he
Carol?
says.
What about you, Carol? What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I hope they can do it, but I mean, I'm always worried about when you set these precedents because it can backfire. They can use it against.
How would this backfire?
I don't mean like this particular case, but when you start going after things and winning court battles, what's it called? I mean,
Lawfare?
Hmm.
You talking about lawfare?
Well, what is it, like when a court goes back and they say there was a precedent set back in 18 whatever or similar whatever, and then the judge, that kind of thing. So I just worry if they start, trying to do what they're going to do to Fauci, then that can backfire and try to do it to somebody similar on down the line that we wouldn't want them doing something similar to. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's been a
I kind of
long
do.
day.
But here's the thing. I think that there are actual real crimes that have been committed by Fauci, by NIAID, by NIH, by all of them. And clearly there are, video of him committing crimes in testimony to Rand Paul and others in which he lied about the gain of function research. And again, even though he did that and no one has prosecuted him and they're trying to pardon him because they know he's guilty of it, well, what about the people in the individual respective states that have been injured by his lie by taking the vaccine, which has gone through gain of function research, mRNA technology, all of that stuff put in was not safe nor effective. And so there is damage, there is standing. See, the key is the word standing. And if they can create standing, certainly in a civil lawsuit, criminal lawsuit, or class action lawsuit, then I think that there's a very good chance that eventually he could be held accountable. But
That'd be
we'll have to
awesome.
see. Let's ask the lawyer. Walter, are you still there? Yes, you are. Walter, you have a legal background. What are your thoughts here on the 17 AGs going after Fauci at the state level? And do you think if it did go to the Supreme Court, that they would rule in favor of preemptive pardoning or against it?
Well, let me address what you said about standing first.
Okay.
Standing is not that big of a legal issue. Standing was the left's manner of determining whether a judge was going to be influenced or not. When they file that motion for standing, it doesn't matter if they win or lose. What they're looking at is the judge telling us, okay, it's corruptible. So I place no credence in the standing issue. It's a very simple legal issue. The question is whether the judge is corruptible. Now, about the state attorney generals, fantastic idea. I'm very proud of the 17 attorney generals. What they need to do is they need to be patient. They need to take one state who prosecutes him at a time, do whatever kind of discovery they can do in criminal law, which is not as much as in civil law, put him on trial. If they lose, then the next state AG goes, then the next, then the next, then the next. So they have so much evidence that there's going to be a final court that convicts him.
Okay.
Now, I feel the opposite as you do. I do not want this at the Supreme Court.
You don't want
it? I would much rather have it at the Louisiana Supreme Court, because Louisiana Supreme Court is very conservative and very strong. They do the right thing. They don't worry about public opinion. So I would much rather have it go through the Louisiana state system, get to the Louisiana Supreme Court, have the Democrats appeal it to U.S. Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court deny writs and not hear it, which is what they want to do. They don't want to have to address that issue. So
let me ask you this
I think
question
that the
then, real
state
quick.
attorney general.
Real quick. So let me ask you this question. So if it goes to the Louisiana, in this case, Supreme Court, and they rule in favor that he's guilty, just because it's a state Supreme Court, are you allowed to appeal to the highest court, which would be the United States Supreme Court?
Yes,
Okay.
you can.
But if you got a conviction at the state of Louisiana's Supreme Court, it is possible that the Supreme Court might punt, right? And not take the case and allow the Louisiana State Supreme Court's decision to stay. That's
Correct.
where you're
They
going,
could-
right?
Yes, yes.
Got it.
And that's
Okay.
what I would prefer to see, because once we get that first conviction, and if the U.S. Supreme Court does not hear the case, well, then the other 16, now one by one, separately, can start rolling up these trials and getting tons and tons and tons of evidence, to where
Okay.
the entire COVID mechanism and all of the people who are doing things that were very illegal and that hurt millions of people, until it all comes. That's what
Okay.
I like to see.
Good. All right, good. Well, I think the last one, I don't think
Because if you do it that way,
Little Mystery's with us right now. Is she? I don't think she is. So it looks like the last one before we wrap up is going to be Jeff. So you started, and we're going to end with you. I know you're in Tasmania, and you might not know our court system as well as we do, but with the state attorney generals going after Fauci, do you think that they're going to be successful? And do you think that at some point the preemptive pardoning will be overturned at the Supreme Court here in America?
Okay, well, firstly, I hope that they are successful. It is a little bit confusing, because we have the Constitution, 1901 Constitution, then we have federal government, then state, where you guys have the state above federal in a lot of areas. But hopefully they will. He needs to be investigated properly and charged and stuff. And as far as Australia goes, a couple of things that people have forgotten or not aware of is the Bat lady from Wuhan. She actually was coming down here for years and working with universities and so on in the state of South Australia, and in particular working on the bat virus, the bat virus. And she was working with them on gain of function and so on. And just in the last 12 months, the state of Victoria, which is heavily involved and in debt to the Belt and Road Initiative and full of Australian Labor Party run, and they're all commies, they are literally building a brand new gain of function research facility in the state of Victoria.
Wow.
So look,
Not going to learn their lesson, are they? Doesn't matter where they are in the world. It's sick.
Yep,
It's,
really
Victoria,
terrible. The state of Victoria has gone broke, and now China is taking over all of the infrastructure. It's the same road initiative.
Okay.
It's the way they roll. So I hope Fauci does go. And also, just out of curiosity, look, I've got quite a few cancers inside and out, and I got some really bad news earlier, 2024, and since then, I have been on to ivermectin liquid form, and it has certainly reduced my cancers, both internal and external.
God bless you.
And thank you. And my symptoms and my personal wellness is much, much better.
Oh, good.
That's
Good.
wonderful.
That is wonderful. I'm really,
Yep.
really glad to hear that. I do, for
Yeah.
time's sake here, I got to get to Liam here real
Yes.
quick. Liam,
Yes.
you didn't get a chance, so I want to give you the floor here. So these 17 attorney generals have decided to take it upon themselves to now sue to try to find these crimes against Fauci and indict him at the state level. But what are your thoughts on that? And then, of course, do you think we're going to get it overturned at the Supreme Court level, the preemptive pardoning?
Yeah, this is an excellent question because, of course, we want so desperately for justice to be served.
Mm-hmm.
Like Glenn said, here in Texas, we have an excellent Attorney General, Ken Paxton, who has been on fire for many other topics, going against the culture. But if we find up a state crime, then yeah, obviously, Dr. Falsey isn't pardoned. As for what happens at the Supreme Court, I have a constitution on my left-hand side. I went to go read it. It says offenses against the United States. I guess a preemptive pardon assumes that you haven't committed an offense. So if you just read it word for word, but again, I don't know if there's other precedent where the Supreme Court say, "Oh, no, sorry, if you have a preemptive pardon, you're free."
Yeah. It's gonna look. It's gonna be an interesting thing. That's gonna, eventually, I think, more than likely end up at the Supreme Court. I think they're gonna have to make a call on this because I think there's so much evidence and so many crimes that have been committed throughout the last 4 years, especially involving COVID and the vaccines and things like that, that at some point they're going to have to address the preemptive pardoning, the January 6th committee, the Reichstag committee, as I like to call it, and all that other stuff. So it's going to get interesting. So strap in and grab your favorite beverage, kick back, and watch the show. But on that note, that is all I've got for this evening. Those are my thoughts. Can't wait to hear all of yours. Please put them down in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Go ahead.